Hey everyone,
Okay.
welcome to the 1v1 Winter Championship tournament. We today have a best of three between macros42 and GameSlayer989. I'm Philothanic with Hexapus joining me here.
Um,
Hex, what do you think
Hello
about this
everyone.
map?
A lot more generous than the one we saw in the last two games. Uh, there's a nice little iron aluminum water, maybe expensive, maybe even scientist here. A scavenger is also an option.
Yeah, unlike some of the previous matches we've seen today on various different streams and casts, this one has options, so I think both players might just wait to found to see if they can get
A scientific HQ
better
has been founded.
debt. So GameSlayer decides to take the scientist spot directly at 0 debt, and Macros follows immediately at the other best spot, going for the expansive location. Just those same two founds that you predicted.
Yeah, well, if macros manage to upgrade first into the high water from GameSlayer, that could be huge.
Right, yeah, Macros does want to try and block that water access from GameSlayer. That would make it a lot better. GameSlayer deciding to go into one aluminum tile, two steels to make use of that high aluminum price right now.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
A
So
scientific
macros
HQ
do
has been
manage to take the high
upgraded.
water.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a
there's core sample, so it's not
The
as
black
bad
market is on
as
right.
it
high.
There are
could
core
be.
samples. GameSlayer is one of those players who's been evangelizing the use of the core sample quite a lot, so I expect that we'll see him use that core sample, so he's not too worried about it. One thing about Macros' spot is, I wonder, maybe, and people are mentioning this in chat, but maybe he'd be better to found on top of the crater than in the crater, just to be slightly better positioned. What do you think
Oh,
about
I don't
that?
I don't mind his position too much because there's still it's a pretty big crater, so he's not like missing out a lot of space. And it's when you're close to a crater. Actually, if he find right on top of the aluminum water, that might have been a bit better.
Right, he would have
But
got up to the upgrade a lot quicker. He wouldn't have to have bought any aluminum. Well, you still
yeah.
have to wait for his carbon to switch in, so maybe it's more of a preference sort of thing than anything. But there is this
Oh,
little rock right here at the back that's kind of,
Like,
blocking him.
I think you're right. If you find on top of the crater, then you don't even have to ship water. I mean, you end up shipping more water than carbon, like generally. So maybe. Oh,
All right.
it doesn't matter
Mean,
that much.
Meanwhile, while we've been talking about macros, GameSlayer has gone into 4 steel mills, wanting to get the upgrade as fast as he can. 4 steel mills, 2 aluminum. GameSlayer has the upgrade, takes that upgrade, and will be interesting to see where he expands into next. Also, we saw Macros going into some early wind, which GameSlayer immediately froze with a power surge.
We haven't
The
talked
black
about much, but
market
the
is
black market
open
is
for
actually pretty
business.
strong. We have EMP, we got power surge, we got dynamite.
Yeah,
Well, we got a magnetic storm.
A
So
scavenger
Gameslayer
HQ has
can't
been
really ship
upgraded.
in stuff.
the only thing it's
So,
missing is nukes.
if there were nukes, then it would be Gameslayer would be a lot happier.
Yes,
New
GameSlayer would be.
land is
GameSlayer
available
is
for auction.
claiming the double geotherm right now. Well, steel is cheap, so this actually doesn't cost them very much. And it could pay off dividends with that power play.
Maybe. Oh, he has 4 steel mills, so I
So,
guess that's part of his plan all along.
Perhaps. I was wondering what he was thinking about with these 4 steel mills, so I'm guessing that was the plan all along.
Interesting
GameSlayer.
that Macros decided to go for reactors instead of food. Uh,
Yeah, so food definitely gives him a more cash right now. In fact, more than double a single tile. It does cost a lot more to put up those farms. Perhaps that's what he was thinking. And right now, Black Game Slayer is not in farms either. So both
oh,
players,
there's also the gust storm that's coming. Perhaps that's why he's not going to farms.
that would make sense. One geothermal vent blown up by Macros. GameSlayer, this is more of an annoyance than anything because these geothermal vents are still... They're expensive, but they're still relatively cheap, only costing about 5k.
GameSlayer has a lot of steel throwing around.
And yes, GameSlayer has a lot of steel incoming, although it will delay his upgrade a bit. If I had GameSlayer, I'd really want to... He doesn't have any goon squads up on either of these geotherms, and they're just such a tempting target.
Yeah, one power surge will just break all your power production. That's not very nice to see. And
one power
dust storm
surge,
is
and then
very-
follow that up right as the power surge is ending by throwing a dynamite on it to make GameSlayer spend more steel on keeping those up instead of upgrading.
Yeah, but steel is cheap, so
Macros is now making power
worry.
money. He's earning 600 a second.
thanks to dust storm.
Yes, with this dust storm, got up to level 4s, moving into some farms. And glass. He does also have a silicon elemental quarry, which is the only instance of long distance shipping right now.
Yeah. Oh, if you create the other
Black
one,
market
then
is online.
you have a silicon monopoly.
Yes, he would have a silicon monopoly until, if the game lasted that long, there is core samples that have not been bought by any players.
Alright. Keep forgetting about the core samples.
Let's see, just to correct someone in chat, GameSlayer did actually power surge these wind turbines right when they came up, but they've been up during the entire dust storm, earning a decent amount of money.
Yeah.
And now power
GameSlayer doesn't really that dust storm. It ruined his power play and it gave a lot of money to Macros. It's just very unfortunate for him.
GameSlayer is also not making use of the scientific bonus, is producing food next to his base. That way they won't get mag stormed, but not making use of that scientific bonus to get free water is always annoying.
Well, he managed to reuse the aluminum fatale, so maybe it's not too bad.
GameSlayer does freeze Macros' farms. That is where Macros was earning the most amount of money right now.
The black market is open for
Macros
business.
has the cash, has the black market cooldown. Let's see what his response will be.
A scientific HQ has been upgraded.
It always feels awkward to attack a scientist. I mean, yeah, you can attack him, but you can just shrug it off. It just takes half the time to recover.
It does,
So
but the
maybe-
black market's everything on the black market is 4.5k or lower right now. There's no reason not to be using it.
True.
The GameSlayer finally hits HQ4. His upgrade has been slowed down, I think, because of building essentially 3 geothermal vents with those dynamites, which is never fun. He's moving into double water to support the greenhouse farms that he has, and GameSlayer's continuing to hammer Macros' greenhouse farms, which are, well, they're not Macros' only source of profits, but the greenhouse farm in carbon is definitely the highest amount of profit that Macros has on the map. So at this point, it sort of feels like Macros has the advantage due to the 1 HQ ahead of GameSlayer.
A
A slight,
scientific HQ has
now
been
they're
upgraded.
tied, but Macros has a slight cash lead, but it seems like he might be letting the game get away from him. What do you think?
Yeah. If it drags longer, it will go into a GameSlayer advantage, especially with his scientific. He can just earn money. He will out-earn his scavager anytime.
That's assuming the GameSlayer's a scientist actually makes use of the scientific bonus for anything other than his steel mills.
GameSlayer, managed to grab up Phantom Machine, and actually the Offworld market are pretty cheap, or not?
The Offworld market's okay.
It's
I mean,
pretty cheap for GameSlayer to put up. It's only 60k to put up a Offworld market, and
GameSlayer needs to use those core samples we were talking about. I'd mentioned that GameSlayer was one of the people who's been complaining that players don't use core samples enough, but he hasn't used one yet.
yeah, it's perfect time to use one.
Time to change our
Just
passwords.
buy some cranes, buy up the
Black
core
market
sample,
is
and
open for
then
business.
you're good to go. No
However,
shipping, no
he
wallet.
is using those black market cooldowns to continually hammer Macros and just make it as hard as possible for Macros to actually earn any money from any of the life support resources, which are right now still the most profitable items on the map.
Yeah, so I guess we can't blame them, right? Blame GameSlayer for not using the core sample because he was busy attacking macros. While we were talking, both of them have put up a hack array.
Mm-hmm.
Where is macros? Okay, so macro hack array is right to the south where the grass, the grass claims are. So
Yes, he's hacking glass. And GameSlayer's just got blown up. But it was easily spotted that Steel Node randomly decided to reconstruct itself. We have more EMPs going down. GameSlayer raining down the freezes on macros, just trying to keep as much of that production offline as possible.
So Macross corrupted 2 cranes and not that many attack from him so far.
No, Macros has sort of, I guess, decided that he's in a long-term game with a scientist, so he needs extra claims. And I can't blame him. But right now, GameSlayer's not using the scientist's advantage to actually produce anything. His food is all coming from these 2 water tiles that he has here. So he's not making use of that advantage.
Yeah, I actually find it very curious that GameSlayer created 2 more aluminum tiles instead of trying to connect up his water to his base.
He did that at HQ4, if I recall correctly.
He did that in HQ4, but if I recall correctly, the aluminum wasn't that high, so and he can always just swap it out from his under his food. So I'm not quite sure why he's doing that.
Right, so at the moment, it looks like Macros has a slight to a little bit moderate advantage. Macros has the advantage in debt and also has the advantage of double GameSlayer's cash on hand. Let's look at some of the markets. The Offworld market has still kind of just puttered around. The prices have increased, but the profits have not that much. An Offworld market for GameSlayer costs 75k. To throw down in resources. If Macros was thinking about putting up as a much steeper cost of, well, now that he's sold out a bunch, 102, to put up an Offworld himself. However, there are lots of tools to attack Offworld markets. Like, Macros is going to defend himself here and attack GameSlayer. I like that move a lot better. A little bit of defense. Some attacks. GameSlayer's gonna have to get out of this hack.
Well, GameSlayer should be able to defend his hack.
Yes.
And then he can't repay the debt and have to sell out of his shortage. That's a pretty good, well-timed attack by Macros actually. He saw the hack coming in, so he just attacked him to force him to sell out.
Yes, this right now is sort of feeling like Macros game to lose. But we have seen in the past stranger comebacks in 1v1 games before, so we won't rule GameSlayer out just yet. Marsquake right now.
Price manipulations to begin shortly.
Putting the resource, increasing the cost of everything just as GameSlayer gets out of his farms. Although he's going into these electronics factories. GameSlayer does have the other silicon on the map, but Macros acquired carbon scrubbing. So GameSlayer is going to be feeding a little bit of carbon money into Macros.
To the highest bidder.
This extra claim.
It's strange that GameSlayer decided to hack aluminum a bit earlier.
GameSlayer
Sold.
GameSlayer has a lot of aluminum, but Macros has been shipping in aluminum this entire time, so
Yeah,
it only benefits both of them. The steel shortage, on the other hand,
GameSlayer managed to sell it out before Macros does, so I'm not sure it did him any good. Very strange.
I suppose he's just trying to make use of some of that aluminum that he has.
Well, perhaps he's trying to get Macros to buy in and then sell under him. That didn't work.
The black market is open for business.
So, both players are heavily into... well, let's rephrase that. GameSlayer is heavy into electronics, making... Each of his electronics factories is making around between 80 and 90 a tile. Macros, with that free carbon scrubbing, is making 120 a tile, but where Macros is really using that carbon scrubbing is with these chemical...
And Macros also jack up the price of silicon, so making it like GameSlayer stockpile of silicon just ran out now, so it really eats into GameSlayer profit, while Macros just sitting on top of a whole stockpile of silicon. So silicon is not 192, it's a lot cheaper. So for him, he's actually earned a lot more from his electronics.
Yes, yeah, it's a little bit. GameSlayer's only negative 0.25 silicon behind. Macros selling out, nope, deciding against it, buying into himself. I think Macros does have this game. GameSlayer's just had to pay down too much debt.
The black market is online.
And it hasn't really been using the science bonuses to their advantage this entire time.
Oh, he didn't.
GameSlayer going with what feels at this point a Hail Mary move of throwing down an Offworld market.
Well, Offworld launching at 40k a piece, so it's not too bad.
No, the question is, will he survive long enough to actually make good money off of those? Because Macros is about 125k away from victory here. Now, one thing I haven't liked Macros doing this entire game is Macros has been auto-selling down food while GameSlayer hasn't been in any farms. That's I think a pretty big mistake, because if he didn't auto-sell that, he'd have a nice stockpile of food that would be ever increasing in price, and GameSlayer would have gone into a lot more debt.
Oh, finally we see more farms and reactors on top of water from GameSlayer.
Yes, these GameSlayer keeps on using his hacker array to have more steel shortages. It'll be interesting to see at the end of the game how much money he's made off of that. Well, Macros is continuing to use his hacker array to throw down chemical shortages. Macros is slowly creeping up to the required amount of money to buy GameSlayer. In fact, if he sold out of a couple of his stock, he should be able to end it.
After the hack coming through, he will have very close, like 90, maybe 90 in the 90s to buy up GameSlayer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could also sell out of 2 of his stock and end the game right here. GameSlayer doesn't have enough money to buy out Macros at all.
That is true.
So this game is over. We're just waiting for Macros to realize that it's over. at this point.
Oh, in the heat of the moment, it's kind of hard to remember everything.
Oh, right. I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
I guess this game sort of was decided when GameSlayer decided to go for two things. First, he decided to go for that 4 steel mills to get that double geotherm and never made any power money off of it. And then second, I'd say GameSlayer not using the Scientifics HQ's advantage and shipping in water instead of using that nice science bonus to pull water out of the ground.
Yeah, so he cramps a lot of tiles on aluminum instead of connecting up his waters, which is very strange to me.
I would have preferred to see those tiles used elsewhere. Yeah, connect the water up, use that core sample, and turn those tiles there into water. But this, while we're criticizing GameSlayer for losing, there's really Macros played a really good game in this one. Just a few little mistakes that we noticed there. Anything you want to say about Macros' founding location and overall play?
It worked out very well for him, so I mean, I would have found the same place too, so...
Right, Macros made on those chemical hacks about just 90k, just under 90k in chemical hacks. Black market targeting against each other was about even, 7 and 7 apiece. Looking at the balance sheet, GameSlayer really only made 58k on Offworld, so about the same price as he paid for it, I think, just a little bit less.